Hello everyone! Thank you for visiting our channel. Have you ever experienced such like stories? Several years ago, Caitlin and Michael got married. Some couples, upon starting family life, distance themselves from their friends, accustomed companies, and get-togethers with them, but not Caitlin. Since school, her best friend has always been Taylor, a little shy but terribly sociable in the company of friends. She always came up with some ideas, sometimes so strange that even Michael had to dissuade his wife from getting involved in various ventures with her friend. However, overall, after Caitlin's marriage, Taylor cooled off a bit and no longer dragged her friend into dubious adventures. Caitlin continued to see her friend almost as often as before, with minor adjustments to accommodate her husband. And once, during one of their Saturday meetings in Central Park, Taylor announced that there would be a great concert next weekend and they simply must go there. Caitlin agreed, on the condition that they would be free not too late. "Don't worry, we'll be free by 10 o'clock, replied Taylor dreamily. It is worth saying that Taylor was simply obsessed with finding herself a life partner. All her acquaintances had already got married and she felt like a black sheep. So everything was at stake, from dating sites and apps to some questionable conversations in grocery stores and queues. In the latter cases, it was not easy for her. She was quite shy, although she tried to appear otherwise. Therefore, mainly of course, the internet and correspondence came to her rescue, but it cannot be said that she was ever very lucky there. The day of the concert arrived. The wife promised her spouse that she would be home by 11:30. She even politely asked him if he wanted to go there with her. But the man did not really like such events. When they met with her friend at the appointed time, Caitlin was initially even taken aback. Her friend was dressed up as brightly and garishly as possible. It was impossible not to notice her. "Taylor, I understand that you came here primarily to meet new people. If two of our friends approach us, should I turn away the second one, or what should I do? How should I behave in general?" asked the wife. "Oh, come on. I'll try not to involve you too much. You're more like my support here," replied the friend. After hearing these words, Caitlin calmed down, but this tranquility lasted only for an hour. Suddenly, she looked away from the stage and saw Taylor walking towards her with a man she didn't know, followed by another stranger. The woman was looking at her and making some signals with her facial expressions, and Caitlin realized that her friend had not kept her promise. "Just play along, talk to him. I really like him. No one is forcing you to take any serious actions," her friend whispered in her ear when she came to drink. Taylor was just devouring her new cavalier with her eyes and was ready to agree to anything. But Caitlin was skeptical about everything. His friend Christopher was trying to court the woman, and in the end, the conversation with him calmed down his wife a little. He was not pushy, did not hint at anything, just politely talked. It could not be ignored that Christopher was very attractive and charismatic, but that evening everything came down to normal communication. Just a couple of days later, Taylor arranged to meet her friend after work at their favorite restaurant. When Caitlin sat down at the table, she saw that her friend was very nervous. "What's wrong? Did something happen?" asked Caitlin worriedly. "Don't be angry with me. I knew you wouldn't agree to this, but I was so worried." Her friend began, but their new acquaintances interrupted their conversation, and then it dawned on Caitlin that she had arranged a double date for them. Once her friend had already asked her to go with her for backup. Caitlin was offended by such a strange proposal then, and apparently her friend remembered it and decided to act more cunningly this time. When she was about to shout at Taylor, Christopher sat down next to her and smiled charmingly. For a second, she even forgot that she had been angry. They were talking so pleasantly that at some point, Caitlin even discreetly removed her wedding ring. For one evening, she wanted to be a free woman, especially in the company of such a charming man. Within a week, Caitlin was already going on dates with Christopher, and they no longer invited anyone else to these meetings. Of course, she was doing all of this secretly from her husband. She was afraid to confess. Every time they met, she thought that this relationship needed to be ended, that it was the last time, but in the end, she got too involved. Their meetings no longer ended with simple walks and dinners in restaurants. When the wife started falling in love, her husband couldn't help but notice the changes in her behavior. She was constantly lost in thought, sometimes not even hearing her husband when he asked her something. And one day she was severely late from work, and her phone was turned off. Michael was worried and was about to go into town to search for his wife, but she eventually returned. The husband rushed to hug her right in the hallway, as he had already imagined the worst. He buried his face in her hair and unexpectedly smelled men's cologne, which he certainly didn't use. Confused, he decided not to ask her about this strange detail, but to observe her behavior further. The woman washed up, changed into her nightgown, and was already getting ready for bed. And then Michael noticed something that could no longer be explained decently. He saw a hickey on his wife's chest. He couldn't ignore it. There was nothing between them for a long time, as his wife was always complaining about fatigue. So this mark was left by another man. He asked her in the most calm and cold tone who her lover was, not as a question, but as a fact. The wife was even stunned by such an unexpected question. She looked at her husband with her mouth half open, tears starting to well up in her eyes. The husband knew she couldn't defend herself harshly or come up with any excuses quickly, so he chose his words carefully. The wife broke down. Through tears, she began to say that she didn't know how it happened, but a simple acquaintance with a girlfriend turned into a romance. She told him about the double date, saying she regretted everything and asked for forgiveness. The husband was not expecting such a flood of information all at once and remained silent while his wife cried. When she finished, she looked at him with hope, feeling awkward to ask for forgiveness and if they could survive this situation. But her gaze said it all. Finally, the husband sighed heavily and said, "No, Caitlin, I definitely won't forgive you. Get dressed, take your things, and leave." A new wave of tears was already welling up, but the man signaled with his hand and urged the cheater to leave. She tried to do something, but the husband simply left the room, leaving her alone with her suitcases. Caitlin left the house that evening, closer to midnight. Michael did not want to dwell on this topic of infidelity, to find out the reasons and dig deeper because it was pointless. He saw the problem, and the only solution was divorce. His ex-wife grieved for a week with her friends, and then they stumbled upon the idea that maybe it was fate. Coincidences are not accidental, and her passionate affair with Christopher was discovered by her husband. Now she is practically unburdened by marriage, and therefore can calmly continue building a relationship with her new lover. The only problem is that at the time she was married, and she didn't tell him anything about it. The man was disgusted with such dishonesty on her part, but when he found out that her husband had kicked her out of the house, he lost all interest in her and even stopped answering her calls. And that's when Caitlin realized that she had lost both what she already had and what could have been in the future. At one point, she lost herself too. She fell into depression for a whole month and even took time off work. When it was time to come back, she still couldn't bring herself to do it. In the end, she lost her job too. After some time, Caitlin finally pulled herself together and found another job. She even started going on dates again, and her friend Taylor was single again. They went out together, always as a pair, looking for a pair for themselves. Of course, each of them kept silent about their own issues. Taylor about the time she spent searching, and Caitlin about the real reason for her divorce. What do you think about this situation? Share your thoughts in the comments. And thank you for listening to the story until the end. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and be sure to like this video, as it will help us promote the channel. All the best.